Hey guys, what's going on? It's the LA Fakers, and we're back for another NFL video. Today we are going to be predicting the 2025 NFL season, including our 2025-2026 Super Bowl champs and playoff predictions, and we will also be doing our award predictions later on in the video. You can look down below for the time skip or whatever. But I'm very excited for this video. We last did this just under a year ago, start of September last year, and that video was wild. I already know this video is going to be wild. Some great takes, some horrible takes, but I'm glad you're here to join us. I'm really excited for this video. James, your GM, joined by
the Jacko Fit 9.
and I think it's time to go start with the AFC West. So let's get into it. Starting off with the AFC West, which is my best performing division in the NFL, which also includes the number one team in the NFL being the Kansas City Chiefs yet again. I had them going 15-2, and I think you saw it last year. They always find a way to win these games, win close games. They have a very disciplined roster, I think, and a lot of talent. We know how good Andy Reid is as a coach too. It will be interesting, to see how they go without Rashee Rice early in the season. But overall, I still think that they're going to be able to pull out at least a lot of games, and they're going to be a real big contender for the top of the AFC and potentially the NFL. But the second team in the division, it's the LA Chargers, who made the playoffs, the wild card, at 9-8. I think they're a very interesting team. It'll be interesting to see how new players go. I like Hampton, and overall, though, I do think there's going to be a similar season, similar story. They sneak into the playoffs, but then they can't turn it into anything in the postseason. But they are the 6th seed, because the 7th seed, also in the division, is the Denver Broncos, who snuck in. I was honestly a bit surprised when I was doing the predictions, and they finished just 9-8. I thought they'd be able to rally together a few more wins, but they were unable to. They had a great offseason, brought in a lot of great players, and it'll be interesting to see, how improved they look. And we also need to see how Bo Nix looks for his sophomore season. But I do think they're going to be a really solid team, and honestly, 9-8 might be selling them a little bit short, but yeah, I think they're going to be a wildcard team in the AFC. And then the final team is the 8-9 Raiders. Had they won just one more game, then every team in the division would have been 500, which would have been crazy. But overall, I think that they are taking steps in the right direction. They made a lot of great moves. I think they're building a true identity. I really liked, obviously, the upgrade at quarterback, now having Geno Smith. And I think they'll be a very fun team to watch with Brock Bowers and with Ashton Genty, who I think could be a top running back in the NFL from the jump, at least like top 10, top 15. So overall, I think it'll be a very solid year for the Raiders.
Yeah, this is obviously my division and also my best division, along with you. I think they're going to be the best division in football. They're normally up there most years, and I think that this year everyone in the division got better. Probably except for the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't really do all that much, but everyone got really good. And starting off, I have the Chiefs at 12-5. Like I mentioned, everyone basically in the NFL felt like they got better, but the Chiefs, and that's nothing against the Chiefs. We know what they will be, and we know what they are, and they're going to be a good team no matter what. I do have them falling a few more games than last year, and only having a 12-5 record, but still a really good season from them. And then I have my Denver Broncos with the improvements going 12-5. I think that Bo Nix, I'm not going to say takes a giant leap, but I think that he plays a little bit better. And, we've seen from him what he can be. At times he outperformed Jaden Daniels last season and was one of the best quarterbacks in the league for like a little stretch of the season. And just squeaking into the playoffs, I have the Chargers, a very interesting team for sure. They have a lot of talent, but they also, I feel like, will be injured heavily, as we've seen with Rashawn Slater. And I feel like they're just in for a bad year with injuries. In my opinion, but I do have them squeaking into the playoffs. They have the quarterback, they have the coach, they have everyone, and they can get the job done for sure. They made the playoffs last year. There's no reason why they can't make the playoffs this year. But I only have them at 9-8. And finally, last in the division, I have the Raiders. A very interesting team, a very fun team, trading for Geno and obviously having Brock Bauer and Ashley Genty, but ultimately you can't get it done without an O-line, and they have like 0 O-line. So yeah, I just see them struggling quite a lot this season, personally. And now let's go into the North, into the NFC North, which in the last couple of years has been a really competitive division, and once again I see that being the case. But only having one playoff team, that being the Detroit Lions at 12-5. Honestly, probably a bit low for the talent they have, I will admit, but they do, still have an amazing team at the end of the day. They're so well coached. They're just a really good team, and they've been a good team for a couple seasons now. They're going to be really good again, in my opinion. And they're just another powerhouse in the league. And moving on, I have the JJ McCarthy-led Vikings at 9-8, a winning record. At the end of the day, JJ McCarthy is a rookie. We've got to remember that, even though he was drafted with, Bo Nix and everyone, he's a rookie with Cam Ward, But I do think that the Vikings are extremely talented, and so I do have them at 9-8 and just missing out on the playoffs. And then joining them, the Packers, who lost a little bit of talent. Losing Jair Alexander is a pretty big loss for them, and ultimately their team didn't really get too much better in the off-season. And then finally, I'm not as high on them as you are. I have the Chicago Bears going 7-10. They have all the talent in the world, but in my opinion, they're still that 1 year off from really being a true dominant force. They lack the experience, and maybe it's hate, I don't know. I just think that they always find ways to lose. Like how other teams find ways to win, they somehow find ways to lose.
Packers or Bears, one game situation, which team would you take?
Give me them Packers.
Go
Packers, go.
The top team in the NFC North for me is obviously Detroit. I don't have much to say. They're a great team. They were able to retain a lot of their talent. Did lose Frank Ragnow to retirement, but they have a great team, so they're going to be back. They're going to be a really strong team. They have a really sound roster, a lot of depth, so I think that just works out in the regular season. But then the next team is the Chicago Bears for me. At 11-6, I'm buying into the hype, just like I did last year. They had a chance to, win, damn near make the playoffs last year. Obviously, a lot went wrong with their young team. Some, a Hail Mary, some bad kicking moments, like a missed field goal, block kick. But overall, I think this could be another step for the young Bears, and I think that they are a wildcard team. But then the next team, another wildcard team. This is probably the best NFC division for me. It's the Green Bay Packers going 10-7. A solid team. Jordan Love is going to continue to progress. He's already a really solid quarterback, and so I like what they got going. I don't think it's groundbreaking. I don't think they're going to win any playoff games, but I think they could just make the playoffs. And then the final team in the division is the Minnesota Vikings. My disappointment of the year, if you want to call it that. I don't see them the same way a lot of the other people do. I think that JJ McCarthy, I think this year is a bit of a bridge year for them because, McCarthy, pretty much a rookie coming off a big injury. I don't think he's going to be able to do all too amazing. They're young, and I'm not sure that they're going to be ready to just go right back to the wild card. That's one of our best pinches ever. I don't think they're going to be able to go straight back to player contender with a rookie. I think it might just take years. Now moving to the AFC North, I have the Baltimore Ravens, who overall finishes as 3 seed in the AFC, but first in a division at 13-4. Pretty obvious that they're going to be a great team. They have a 2-time MVP and potentially going to win his 3rd MVP in Lamar Jackson, one of the best running backs in the NFL as well. I know he's aging, but he's still got it. They have a great defense. I like what I've seen from Mike Green so far in the preseason. But the second team in the AFC, a team that, very polarizing, the Cincinnati Bengals going 11-6 and, taking home that first wild card spot. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about that defense, but Joe Burrow is coming off his best season in the NFL, and Jamar Chase as well is coming off a triple crown, 1,700 receiving yards included. If they can just get a few more, stops, just get a bit more to go their way throughout the season, they could definitely take a step up and make the wild card. It is kind of interesting to see this Trey Hendrickson situation unfold, and it would definitely benefit the Bengals if they could figure that out sooner rather than later. The two next teams, both 7-10. We'll start with the Steelers because they are technically ranked above the Browns in this one. The Steelers 7-10. I think it's going to be the first losing season for Mike Tomlin. They have, a really old roster. The questions remain on if those old guys still got it. I don't think Aaron Rodgers does. I don't think Jalen Ramsey has it. I think it's just going to be a disappointing year. I don't think the DK Metcalf trade, I don't think they got the value for what they gave up. And so I do think that it's going to be a step down, a little bit of a step down for them. I know it's the Steelers, it's not the way they operate, but I think they need to start a rebuild. It's probably for their best that they figure out who their quarterback of the future is, because Rodgers he's not it after the last season. The Cleveland Browns also at 7-10. You could even call me biased for that because they might not get 7 for sure, but I'm a believer. They got a lot of moving parts. I did have them starting 0-4. They have a very tough start to the season, some tough teams to play. But overall, I think they're going to be exciting, and I'm excited to watch my Browns. I'm really excited to watch them. A lot of great youth in Cleveland.
That is fair. With my AFC North, I've got the exact same record for the Baltimore Ravens, who are going to be the first seed in the AFC North at 13-4. We don't really have to say too much. The real question is, can they win a Super Bowl? Who knows? This could be the year, potentially. You really hit the nail on the head with the Mike Green stuff and just how good their roster is. I mean, there's not too much to say about them. Another dominant year for them coming up, I think. And moving on, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers with the first losing season as well under Mike Tomlin at 8-9. They always go 9-8. Why not make them go 8-9? And A-Rod is going to be very interesting. As if you watched last year's video, I'm a big A-Rodder. I love A-Rod, and I think that he could be better than what people think. I don't think he'll obviously light it up. He's not that anymore, but he could be alright for them. DK Metcalf is a very solid player. Jalen Ramsey could be solid with just a new, getting out of Miami. And yeah, I think that they'll just be a pretty solid team, as always. And moving on from them, I have the Cincinnati Bengals sharing an 8-9 record. They have the greatest scoring offense of all time, but they might actually have the worst defense of all time. And as far as I know, defense wins championships. The Bengals are in all sorts at the moment. And, they've got to figure it out quick, because I just don't think that they will, unfortunately. But it could always be worse. You could be the Cleveland Browns, who I have going 5-12. I just don't think that they've, you need a quarterback, and the fact is, you can't just rotate between like 4 different quarterbacks week in, week out. It's not going to be a winning formula for them. And, it's just a stepping year. That's as simple as that. Like, they've had a really good draft, or so I've been told multiple times at this point. I just don't think the Shador Aura will translate this year. Maybe in the coming years I could see him being, Shador Aura, but at the moment, Shador Aura doesn't exist. It's not here. With the NFC East, I have the Philadelphia Eagles going 14-3. Once again, going to be a dominant team. They're basically just a Madden team. They just go out and just draft players and pick players up, in free agency and whatnot. They just kind of just get them, and it's super annoying. They're a powerhouse, and they're, essentially a dynasty. I think that's built they've just got to maintain it and go around another year. Moving on, we have the Washington Commanders at 11 and 6. Not as good as they were last year, but I do think that teams are going to start, sussing them out and, marking them down on the schedule, playing way better against them, than maybe other opponents. I mean, they had a really good off-season, but ultimately I do see them just falling one more game than what they did last year, but still an incredible season from them. And then the Dallas Cowboys, an improvement from me personally in realism. They're a very interesting team. CeeDee Lamb is peak, Micah Parsons is maybe the best defensive player in the league if he's playing for them, which I assume he will be, by the way. And, they have a lot of talent, top-end talent, but they're just not the best team, though, in my opinion. And Dak Prescott coming off an injury, and they weren't really playing well anyways with him. I just think that, he might not be the best, although I do think he will have a bit of a bounce back. But ultimately, 8 and 9 is probably just going to be their record. And then finally, we have the lonesome New York Giants at 4 and 13. And, that's probably a bit too many wins for them, just considering how tough of a record they actually do own. They have some really good players like Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter, but ultimately, I just don't see them doing much. It's basically guaranteed that they're not going to play very well this year. I'll be extremely shocked if they're anywhere close to the playoffs. But I guess we have seen stranger things. But yeah, 14 and 3. Whoa. 4 and 13 is the final record for me for the Giants. And that is my NFC East done.
Yeah, but you heard it here first. Giants going 14 and 3. Okay, well, my NFC East, I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the conference and division at 14 and 3. An obvious pick. I don't have to expand on that much, I don't think. Reigning Super Bowl champions. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the dreaded Super Bowl slump that a lot of teams go through. The next team in the division is a wild card team. It is the Washington Commanders. Sneaky in 10 and 7, that's respectable. I think that they're obviously a young team. Jaden Daniels, will see if he can, match his production or even take a step on it, or if he will fall victim to the sophomore slump that we see a lot of QBs go through. But I think that the Commanders still going to be a very solid team. They have a lot of talent, so I think they could go 10 and 7. The Dallas Cowboys I have going 6 and 11. It'll be interesting to see. We don't know how Dak's going to come back. We've seen him come back from pretty bad injuries before, to be fair. But also, I just think they're on their roster just missing a bit. And when your best player we don't even know if their best player is going to be playing in Micah Parsons. So I guess we'll wait and see there. And then the final team, the worst team in the NFC. Matter of fact, the worst team in the NFL is the New York Giants for me, going 3 and 14, 0 and 6 in the division. And I will say, they did have a very tough schedule. They were second in strength of schedule, very tough schedule for them. But I just think that they don't really have it yet. This is obviously they're in the middle of a rebuild, so we'll see where they go. I will say, 11 games against teams above 500. They won one of them, which was the game that was at an away game at the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson getting it done against his former side, getting his revenge on Sean Payton. I think that is, just storybook, and I really hope that happens in real life. But overall, as a team, they're just not good enough. So, all right, well, we will move to the AFC East, I suppose, and go to the Buffalo Bills, who are 14 and 3 in my world. They're the number 2 seed, obviously losing out to the Chiefs, tied with the Ravens. I think those three are the clear-cut teams, and so they're just really contending with them. We know how good the Bills are. Josh Allen coming off an MVP. There are still questions about how much talent they have, especially on that offensive side. There's a bit of a lack of support for Josh Allen, but he showed last year he can get it done with anyone. James Cook is, I believe, a top 5 running back in the NFL as well right now. the next team is going to be the New England Patriots, one of the more exciting teams in the NFL for next season, going 9-8. Unfortunately, just barely missing out in the playoffs. I tried my hardest to get them in over the Broncos, but the Patriots are just couldn't quite get it done. But overall, great season for them for a young team. I liked what they did in the off season. They got a lot of great talent. You know, free agency players like Milton Williams. They spent a lot of their money that they had saved up. And in the draft, some great players, Travion Henderson specifically. I'm excited about, you know, what Drake May could do in his second season, what steps he could take, and I think they're going to be a very exciting team. The next team, though, is the Miami Dolphins, which, you know, pretty disappointing. I think they're going to go 6-11. They're a very weird team right now. We don't know much about how many games Tua is going to play. Very obviously, unfortunately, though, but very injury-prone quarterback with all the head injuries and whatnot. So, you know, we'll see how healthy they are as a team. I just think that right now they're just missing a lot of talent. They don't have much depth either. And then the next team is the New York Jets, going 5-12. I was kind of surprised they stuck at 5. I am a believer in Justin Fields, except the Jets just don't have that good of a roster, honestly. I think that it felt like they were taking the right steps, but it's just tough. Because I feel like a lot of the other teams in the NFL, you know, improved a lot. And I feel like the Jets are one of the teams that just didn't have as much improvement. So I think this could be a pretty poor year for them after, obviously, the failed Aaron Rodgers experiment.
Yeah, I've got the exact same recorded Bills. I have them being atop of the AFC, the top dogs, at 14-3. Another, you know, last year I effed around and I found out pretty hard. You know, I thought I was so cool, thinking that they would miss the playoffs and I would be the biggest brain guy ever. But as it turns out, I was never more wrong. And I've learned from my mistakes. I think that they'll just be really good. I understand it now. And Josh Allen, he doesn't need good players, like, you know, quote unquote good players. He makes players good. Adding Joey Bosa, who I think he still has a bit of juice, you know, compared to like Von Miller. Sneaking in as the 7th seed, everyone's favorite all of a sudden, the New England Patriots, maybe the most improved team of the whole off season, definitely up there. They had a cracked off season. They were great all throughout, drafting, you know, Will Campbell and Travion Henderson, getting Milton Williams, getting others, you know, in free agency. They just had a really nice off season, and maybe the biggest addition, Mike Vrabel, an extremely good and confident, you know, coach who I think will do wonders for a guy like Drake May and just the team in general. I have the Miami Dolphins at 4-13.
Damn.
I don't think that they're going to be good at all. They essentially have no roster, and in my opinion, Tyreek Hill will be traded by mid-season. He will be out of there, and they just will crumble completely. No O-line, no D-line, barely any real elite defense at all. Rounding out the AFC East, it is also the Jets at 4-13. A very weird team. Justin Fields, you know, he looked pretty good in his starts in Pittsburgh, and probably would have led them to a playoff berth and all that if they had kept with him. But, you know, I just don't think that he's going to be very good. He's looked pretty awful in just preseason football, and who knows what they're going to look like with him. I don't know. It's going to be a very weird team, and I just don't think they're just a team that just never does it. You know, they have all the talent on paper, but they can never actually win games. So yeah, I have them at 4-13 as well. All right, and the next division in this video is going to be the NFC West. A very interesting division week in, week out. You know, a very competitive division, one of the most in the league for sure. Overall, I have the Rams winning the division once again at 10-7. Matthew Stafford, as far as I know, is apparently dead, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that on Twitter, but I think Matthew Stafford died. But he is going to be out for like probably the first few weeks, and I see them being bad. But then they do pick it up with him back. because he just never seems to age. He ages like fine wine and just gets better and better each season. They made the playoffs last year. Jared Verse is probably going to ball out, have an amazing season once again. They're just going to be a really good team again, and a really tough team to play. And speaking of tough teams, I have the Seattle Seahawks tied with a 10-7 record. I think that the Sam Darnold experiment will work. I could see it failing miserably. Don't get me wrong. I'm putting it out there. I could see it failing miserably. But, you know, there's just something about the Seahawks. They just play so competitive every season. I hate them so much for no real reason. But JSN could take a massive leap, in my opinion.
Hell yeah.
Jake Bobo is going to be the best slot receiver, best wide receiver in the league.
What about
And
Cooper
yeah,
Kupp?
they've got a very solid team. I forgot about Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
He's pretty good too.
they got all the wide receivers.
But moving on, I have the 49ers at a modest 8-9, once again dealing with a lot of injuries, and their once elite roster just falling apart, unfortunately. Very much from that Super Bowl hangover, and I don't think that, especially paying Brock Purdy, is it's not very nice for them. I mean, I see them squeaking out a couple good divisional wins, I guess, but nothing much more. I don't really see them doing much this season and being much of a threat. And speaking of not threats, I also have the Arizona Cardinals not posing much of a threat at only a modest 6-11. Is Kyler good? Not really. It doesn't seem like it. I don't think he's gonna have that good of a season. And yeah, I mean, the team overall is going up. You know, I like Will Johnson as a draft pick, but they didn't really add much else. But overall, yeah, I don't see Arizona doing very well. I could see them maybe squeaking into the playoffs if there were a bunch of injuries, but probably not. I hope that Marv cooks so.
Well, it's my turn, man. And winning the division, I have the LA Rams, just like you. I have them taking an extra loss, though, going 9-8, but managing to pull out in a very tight division in my books. It seems like it is quite often very tight. But I think that the Rams they have the veteran talent. It seems like they just manage to win games every season. So I just think they're going to be able to pull it out, especially late in the season when the games matter most. I trust them, and I trust Matt Stafford more than I trust, Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray. So I think that they're going to be able to pull it out. And the next team is the Arizona Cardinals, who tied with the Seahawks at 8-9. I just think that the Cardinals didn't really do much to get better, to be honest. I like the Josh Sweat pickup, especially, with how big of a need edge rusher was for them last season, and just D-line. They also got Delvin Tomlinson. They had obviously a really bad pass rush last season, so I think it will be a bit better. But overall, I just don't think they, move the needle enough for me to just really believe that they can win the division just yet. Not right now. And then obviously the Seahawks tied with them at 8-9. Very similar. They made a lot of changes in Seattle, but I'm hesitant on Sam Darnold. We'll see how much of it was really him or how much was the system. They brought in Cooper Kupp, but just Cooper Kupp's not that good anymore. Same with DeMarcus Lawrence. I'm hesitant with them. To finish out the division, I have what teams left? I have the San Francisco 49ers going 6-11. As you mentioned, they're a very injury-prone team. I expressed my disappointment in that offseason. Well, not really disappointment. They couldn't do much. They had to re-sign Kittle. Purdy's on a big contract now. There wasn't much they could do, but yeah, just very little improvements in the offseason. And I'd say they honestly probably got worse in that offseason. Losing some key players like Javarius Ward. I don't know if you call Debo a key player anymore, but yeah, they lost a fair bit of talent. But that concludes the NFC West. We are now moving on to the final AFC division, which is the AFC South, which is a fairly cut and dry division. The Houston Texans, of course, I have winning the division at 10-7. I think they're going to be a fair bit ahead of the rest of the division. One of the weakest divisions in the NFL, and they're the clear standout. And yeah, they're just a team that's going to win games because they're in the worst division in the NFL. Arguably, I mean, I guess NFC. Never mind. We'll get to the NFC South. But yeah, I think that will be all right. But we'll see how they go. I think they'll win the division, and I'm not sure they're going to do much after that, to be honest. But the second team in the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars, going 6-11. I hope, I might be a bit biased because the Browns have their picks, so I'm hoping for a bad year. But also just, after last season, can you blame me for not having belief in them? They didn't show much. They weren't very good. I do believe that Trevor Lawrence is a pretty good quarterback, but we're struggling still to just see that like real superstar potential that we once thought that he had, that led to him getting picked number 1. I am excited for Travis Hunter though. Obviously, we'll see what he can do. He'll at least bring some life and some fun to the team. But outside of that, there's not much reason to watch the Jaguars. But the next team in the division is the Tennessee Titans, who go 5-12. Obviously, with rookie QB Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is going to have a very, very solid rookie QB season. He projects to be a great QB, I should say. He's got the tools. We'll just see. Especially on a tough team, I don't think he's going to be able to put it all together instantly. So I think it might just take some time as well. But I think he'll be a very solid QB. I think that they'll win 5 games, and from there they'll hopefully hit on another pick. Hopefully Cam Ward is a hit, and they can get this rebuild moving. The final team, which is the team that I have at the very bottom of the AFC. I'm sorry, Indianapolis Colts, but it's just I'm every year or every game for week last season, I felt like I was talking about how I don't like what they have going, and I'm still there. We don't know who their quarterback is. Is it Daniel Jones? Is it Anthony Richardson? Which one's even better at this point? I'd probably say I'd rather them start Daniel Jones. If they want to win, that is. But we'll see what Anthony Richardson can do. I'm just not a big fan. Javarius Ward was a nice get, and they got that tight end Tyler Warren. He's good, but overall they just lack talent, and the QB situation, which honestly, I know a lot of people talking about the Browns. They might have a worse QB situation than the Browns do. So I think that's going to be a big reason why they're losing a lot of these games. And so I think it's going to be a very bad season that will end or result in them selecting a quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft.
Well, going with my AFC South division, I think it's probably the most clear-cut division in the league. The Texans are just way better. I think CJ Stroud, he didn't even play that well last year. He definitely had a sophomore slump. But I think he will improve quite a lot. They have a very talented team. D'Amico Ryans is a great coach. They're going to be good because they have a really bad division. And I think that they go 11-6. They're just a really good team, and there's really not too much to say about them. As long as they stay healthy, health was a big factor last year to them as well. As long as they can stay healthy like they were a couple of seasons ago, they can definitely pull off a couple upsets, maybe even win 1 or 2 playoff games. Definitely the surprise team not the surprise team, but an interesting team to say the least in the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are second in the division at 7-10. You were very right, I feel like, about Trevor Lawrence. We haven't quite seen that pro potential from him. And the Jags just lack a lot of the pro players, that they've had in the past. And they're going to be very interesting with Travis Hunter, I think. And, being in such a bad division, they're better than the Colts and they're better than the Titans. I think they could honestly make the playoffs and I wouldn't be utterly shocked. But they're also just like the definition of mid, low-key. But then I have the Colts at 5-12. I just think that they are, well, they're just not going to be very good. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, what a fun QB competition. Maybe the best in the league other than the Browns, as you mentioned earlier. But I do really like the pickup of Charvarius Ward. Overall, I kind of just, I just don't see them obviously having that good of a season. And tied with them is the Titans as well. The Titans, I personally think, probably have some of the worst talent in the league. Cam Ward is going to struggle quite a bit. They have a year 2 coach. I mean, it's still very much a rebuilding year. I'd be very shocked if they won more than 5 games. And yeah, overall, that's my division. The most, I think last year we said it, like, or at least I probably said it, the most, kind of just worst. They're just boring, to be honest. There's not much happening other than like Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's the funnest part of this division.
They have the #1 overall pick. You're just like everyone else talking about sleeping on Cam Ward.
And then finally, the last division in our video, it is going to be the NFC South. And this might ruffle your feathers. At number 1, I have the Atlanta Falcons at 10-7. Yeah, it's Penix season, baby. It's Penix season. Draft Kyle Pitts. He's gonna ball out, I promise. No, but they honestly, I don't even think that highly of them. It's just this, I just kept making them win, and they just kind of looked like they had an easier schedule. The Falcons, I think it's their time to shine. Maybe. I think that Michael Penix will take a big leap. He's looked really good so far in camp. So I've heard. And I think that he's going to be a very good player. And second in the division, I have the Panthers at 10-7 as well. Bryce Young is going to be the truth. Ted McMillan is going to be him. My only problem is, as much as Bryce Young, is the next Messiah and everything, we've got to take into account they quite literally had the worst defense last year. I think one of the worst defenses of all time. They're not quite there yet. I think another good off season and they'll be really good and rocking and ready to go. And then moving on, honestly, really disappointing for me. But the Buccaneers, they're going to be a very interesting team. A lot of old talent as well. Baker Mayfield, Tristan Wirfs are obviously going to cook, but with a lot of aging talent, they're just going to fall off. I mean, they just barely made the playoffs last year and then lost at home to Washington. So, it's probably no shock that they might fall off quite a bit this season and just not be quite the same team. And then finally, we also have the Saints. Not too much to say. At 4-13. Probably a bit too high for them, but I can see them squeaking out wins.
Alright, now my turn to do the NFC North. I have the Carolina Panthers winning the division. One of my favorite teams in the NFL this season. Probably my favorite outside of the Browns. I'm a big Bryce Young guy, and I think that he's going to have a much better year, which is going to help them go 11-6. I really like McMillan, giving Bryce Young a real #1 option to throw to, and I think that they could have a very surprising season for some. But I mean, you saw the way they finished out that season. Their defense was great. Bryce Young was great. So I think they've just taken steps in the offseason to get better. So I believe they will win the division. And then the next team I have is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Them and the Falcons are two very mid teams, which has been enough to win a division in the past. Not this year for me. But yeah, 9-8 teams around where they're going to go. They have solid options. I really like Emeka Egbuka. But I'm scared that he's not going to get a ton of minutes in a very deep receiving, group. But Baker Mayfield is, while he may not be the best QB in the league, he's around that, halfway point, top 16 QB in the NFL. And I have the Falcons a bit worse than what you suggested at 8-9, but it's not that far, to be fair.
That's fair.
I'm just I think they had a good draft, but overall they didn't really do a ton in the offseason. I just have to see a bit more from Michael Penix before I really am gonna become a believer in that team. So I think it could be 8-9. As I said, they're a very mid team. They're normally close to where the Bucks are, and I think that's gonna be the case again. And then I have the Saints winning 4 games. Yeah, they're not a good team, so I don't have much to say. They're in a middle of a rebuild, except that they're not rebuilding. They got an old roster, a lot of people paid. But I think they are trying to get out of the situation that they put themselves in and get to a rebuild. So they're going in the right direction if that is the case. But this year's just not going to be good for them. But now, I guess let's move on to the playoffs. Yep, I'll go through my whole playoff predictions. First, with the wild card, I'll quickly say who missed out in the AFC. The 8th seed was the Patriots and the 9th seed were the Raiders. They were the 2 teams within a game of the playoffs. But in the AFC, I had the Bills beating the Broncos. Number 2 Bills, not a surprise. Bills are a great team. Number 3 Ravens winning as well. Again, we expect the Ravens to be able to beat the Chargers. The Chargers like to implode in the playoffs as well, as seen by Herbert last season. So I just don't think they have a real chance against the top teams like the Ravens, the Bills. And I think that the Bengals will be the one team in the AFC to get the away victory over the Houston Texans. As I talked about earlier, I'm a pretty big believer in Joe Burrow and their offense this season. I think that's enough in a one-game situation. But moving out to the NFC, the teams that were closest, the Bucks and the Falcons were actually the 8 and 9 seed in the NFC. So not a very good NFC. But the number 2 Detroit Lions get their revenge, I think, against the Washington Commanders. A nice little matchup after last season, but I don't think the Lions are going to, let that happen again. I think the number 3 Panthers would pull off a playoff victory. I had different, but I'm changing it right now. I believe they could beat the Packers at home. Bryce Young, big season. I already talked about them, but yeah, I'd like them to potentially pull out a playoff victory this year. I think it's going to be a much better year for them. And then the number 4 seeded Rams also win at home against the Chicago Bears. Bears are a really young team. Obviously, Rams are a lot of veterans. Matt Stafford's, got a great record in the playoffs. Last season, you saw them almost beat the Eagles. So that's how you know they're a good playoff performer. The divisional round in the AFC, some nice matchups. I have the Chiefs going against the Bengals, which, reigniting this old rivalry. I have the Chiefs inevitably winning, though. They always seem to get it done in the playoffs. And then another rivalry game is the Buffalo Bills at home against the Baltimore Ravens. Could go either way, but I'm giving this one to the Ravens. Just because, I don't know, because the Bills won it last year. I mean, I think the Ravens are better on paper, but I guess you never really know between these top teams. They usually do make for some great games. So in the NFC, I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning another rematch. It's against the LA Rams, at home. I think that the Eagles are going to be able to lock in the playoffs and are going to go on a big run, or get to the championship game. And the Lions are going to be able to beat the young Panthers as well at home. So now, into the conference championship games, I have the Kansas City Chiefs at home. To the dismay of a lot of NFL fans I know, but they just always get it done. And I think Mahomes is going to have a better year this year, stat-wise at least. And I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to pull it out over the Ravens to make the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, in the NFC, an upset and away victory for the Detroit Lions, knocking off the reigning Super Bowl champ Eagles. The Lions just have what it takes. I think they have a lot of great players on their roster. And now let's see if I can quickly sneak the Super Bowl in. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning. I think it's just... Bro, why are they trash talking us? Please dunk it. Please dunk it. Please dunk it. I know the Chiefs, very sad pick, but they get it done. I think Mahomes is obviously one of the greatest quarterbacks in recent NFL history. And I think he's gonna get his third Super Bowl. It would be. Um, and yeah, I think he could beat the Lions. I think the Chiefs might be destined for Super Bowl revenge after that loss last season.
And now they beat us. Wow, this is Rocket League. Well, for my playoff predictions, starting off with a bang, is the Houston Texans hosting my Denver Broncos. And you know, last year you got your bias in. This year it's time for me. I think that the Denver Broncos will pull up off the upset over the Texans, who, you know, most of the Texans wins this year came against their own division, which we know is like really bad. Both two really solid teams in my opinion, both very similar in talent, and yeah, I just think that the Broncos can get it done. But moving on from that, I have the Ravens taking on the Patriots, and obviously there's going to be a Ravens W. There's not too much to be said. The Patriots are still building towards something, and the Ravens are, well, the Ravens. And finally, ending the wild card round for the AFC, I have the Chiefs vs Chargers, and I think that the Chiefs beat them pretty comfortably. The Chargers only just squeak into the playoffs for me, and they show that in the playoffs. Also forgot to mention, my two teams just missing out on the playoffs at the 8 and 9 seed were both the Steelers and the Bengals. So, yeah. And then moving on for the NFC, I think my two just missing out were the Vikings and the Packers. Both missing out, you know, this year for both sides of teams in the same division with the same records. But moving on from that, I have a very interesting playoff matchup that I actually audibled to. I audibled it and changed it last second. I have the Falcons taking on the Panthers, and I have the Panthers beating the Falcons in Atlanta. I think it could be a really fun matchup, to be honest. Like, you know, a high-scoring affair from both teams, both quarterbacks wheeling and dealing them. And then moving on, the Lions taking on the Seahawks. I have the Lions winning that. The Seahawks, you know, probably won't even make the playoffs, but if they do, I don't think that they go very far, especially considering Sam Darnold this year. I mean, well, sorry, last season, I should say, in the playoffs, he did not play very well. And then rounding off the wild card round for the NFC is the Rams taking on the Commanders, and I have the Commanders beating the Rams. As much as I like to see Matthew Stafford going out on a Super Bowl ring, it's probably not going to happen. The Commanders just have too much. And now into my divisional round, I have a playoff rematch from last year with the Bills taking on the Broncos. I think that the Broncos become a lot more competitive in this one, but ultimately do lose. The Bills are a cracked team, as I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I just think that it's a good stepping stone year for the Broncos. You know, heading in the right direction, but not quite there yet. And then I have the Ravens taking on the Chiefs, and the major difference from you is I have the Ravens taking it out. I think that they can finally get it done. I won't stand for any more Mahomes. And on the NFC side of the ball, I have the Eagles versus the Panthers. I think the Panthers will be very competitive, just like the Broncos, but ultimately will go down to the Eagles. The Eagles are such an elite team, and overall, yeah, they just peak, and the Panthers just won't have enough talent to keep up with them, especially in Philadelphia as well. And then the Lions will be playing will be a rematch of last year's playoffs with the Lions and the Washington football team. Commanders, not football team. And I personally have the Lions taking this one out. I believe you do too. I just think that the Lions will get it done. Going into the championship round, I have the Bills taking on the Ravens, and I have Lamar getting it done. It was a really tough decision for me, but ultimately I think that Lamar gets it done over Josh Allen. Both the playoff chokers, you know, of the 2020s, getting it done. Lamar coming out on top and going to his first Super Bowl. And for the NFC side, maybe a bit boring, I have the Eagles beating the Lions. And then in my Super Bowl, I have the Eagles over the Ravens in the Bird Bowl, and that is my playoff predictions done.
It's the NFL awards. We're going to start with the Rookie of the Years. We'll start on offense. So, my offensive Rookie of the Year is the clear favorite, Ashton Genty. I think he's going to be, well, I guess not clear favorite. Cam Ward's actually pretty close, but those two are the clear favorites. And Genty is currently ranked number 1 in the odds. He's has a chance to be a top half, maybe even top 10 running back from the jump, and he's going to be a big part of that Raiders offense. So I do believe that he has what it takes to be, that guy from the beginning. I will say, if Travis Hunter was going to win an award, it would have to be this one because, it's really his only chance. It's going to be tough though, if he's playing defense as well and just as a receiver against a high volume running back and a number 1 overall QB. So.
That's fair. Well, for my offensive rookie of the year, I'm going with someone a little bit different. As much as Ashton Genty will probably win it, in my eyes, I just don't think that the Raiders' offensive line is good enough. And, a running back can only go as far as his offensive line allows him to, and I don't think he's going to go as far, as some would hope, I guess. And in my opinion, I think that Ted McMillan will win Offensive Rookie of the Year with the Panthers. I think that him and Bryce Young are already going to create such a dominant duo together, and I think that we're going to see that, and he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year and be the best receiver out of the class so far.
All right, well, that's a very valid pick. Let's go Defensive Rookie of the Year. This is, I've kept my bias aside like the whole show, the whole podcast, the whole video, whatever you want to call this. It's time I let it fly. Give me Mason Graham, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He is ranked 7th. He's tied for 7th in the odds. I just think he looks really good. He's playing alongside Myles Garrett. Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire on the edge, the other edge, have looked really good as well in the preseason. So I think he has a chance to, be a real disruptor and maybe even pressure the QB a bit from the jump. So I have him. Obviously, Abdul Carter is a real chance. Mike Green I like as well, and Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker, has looked really good. So, but my pick's Mason Green.
My pick, I am gonna have to go with the man Abdul Carter. As much as he wants to clown on teams who just cooked him in the preseason, he is gonna be a dog for sure. I'm going gold again. These guys are really mad, huh? But yeah, I'm gonna go Abdul Carter. I think that he's just gonna ball out this season and be really good.
We will move on to some of the more obscure NFL awards. We're going to start with a brand new award. We're going to continue with a brand new award, which is the NFL Protector of the Year. I really didn't know how to judge this one. I just kind of went with the favorite and, probably the best lineman in the NFL in Penei Sewell. I don't really know how they're going to judge this award, if it's going to go by team stats, if it's going to go advanced metrics, etc. Biggest name, we'll see. But yeah, Penei Sewell's a safe pick. I like, Jordan Mailata, obviously, Tristan Wirfs, and Dean Dawkins are some other picks, but yeah.
Just like you, I've been trying to keep my bias aside for the most part. But I think it's time. I think that Quinn Miners will win this award. I don't know if guards will ever win this award, by the way. I don't think that they will. I think it's going to be like how quarterbacks only win MVP, or MVP's only quarterbacks. I feel like this award's only going to go to tackles, but who cares? I think that Quinn Miners is going to win. He's a peak guard, and he's the reason why the Broncos are so good. Let's be true.
Yep, now Comeback Player of the Year, another very weird award. I have Aiden Hutchinson, who is the betting favorite. Hutchinson coming up with a big injury. You'll see later an award I have him winning. That's a big hint. But yeah, I think he's going to have a big year, and I think that's just going to automatically give him that. Some other names, Dak Prescott, Nick Chubb, and Chris Godwin are other names that I like. to win the award, but yeah, I got Hutchinson.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to be the same with you. You already know an award that I'm gonna have him winning, and I think that Comeback Player of the Year is definitely gonna be one of those. And yeah, he's gonna be a baller. He's so good, and he's a dog. And I don't think he's gonna be affected at all by that broken leg.
We're gonna go to the Player of the Years, I think now, and then we'll do Coach of the Year and MVP. So let's just start with Defensive Player of the Year because we were just talking about this guy. I have Aiden Hutchinson. I will say this award was by far my hardest award to judge because I feel like none of the guys are gonna win it. Garrett and Water on bad teams. Parsons, we don't know what's going on with him. Hutchinson is coming off a big injury. There's not really any clear favorites, But I did have to go Hutchinson after I talked to you about it the other day, and you suggested him. I had to pick him. He's second in the odds, and yeah, I think he's got a great chance. He's going to be on a great team too. Out of the last 10 DPOYs, all 10 of them have been on playoff teams. So winning does matter, and I think a lot of the top defenders aren't going to be on good teams. So he's just kind of wins it by default.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I didn't suggest that I made it a he was gonna. Yeah, he was my DPOY though. He's absolutely my DPOY as well. So
we will now move on to Offensive Player of the Year, which I have winning Jamar Chase. I think he had a massive year last year, and this will coincide with my MVP pick that we'll talk about later. You might have already guessed based on what we talked about earlier in the show, earlier in the episode. I don't know why I keep calling it a show. We are not that big. But yeah, I'm a believer in Chase. I think he's got the best chance for a big year. He's second, obviously. Justin Jefferson's third. It's going to be tough for him, though, with a rookie QB and just maybe not a great team. Saquon Barkley's first. I don't know if he's going to be able to, have as much. Teams are definitely going to be selling out to stop Barkley. They were last year, too, and he was still getting it done. But it's going to be tough to repeat that. And so I think Chase will definitely be able to steal it from him. I think another name I had listed was Brock Bowers, just for fun, a fun name. You never know, but yeah, I have Jamar Chase winning.
To me, it's either him or Jay Jettas, in my opinion. As crazy as it sounds, it's obviously Saquon. I think did Saquon win it last year? I'm pretty sure he did. I could be wrong though, I guess.
Yeah, Saquon did.
Saquon had a cracked year, and he's like 30 now though. It's pretty rough for a running back. Once they get to 30, they just drop off so quick. So I don't expect him to be obviously 600 yards and 40 fumbles or anything like his Melvin Gordon, but I don't expect him to have quite the same year that he did have. And yeah, I see Jamar Chase also winning Offensive Player of the Year. He's in his prime. He just come off of a triple crown, as you mentioned. He's him, and I expect him to get his long-awaited Offensive Player of the Year award.
Moving on to Coach of the Year, I had Ben Johnson, who is the betting favorite for the Bears. Obviously, I think they're going to be a very, very good team. I think they're going to be improved. I think they have a really good chance for playoffs. And so I think he's just the safe pick for a young team that's going to improve. There's also Dave Canals for the Panthers. I obviously had them improving a lot, so he's got a great chance. Mike Vrabel, Pete Carroll, those are the names I've written for honorable mentions. But overall, I just think that it's hard not to pick Ben Johnson.
That is fair. My Coach of the Year, actually, I'm just thinking about it now, it's tough. I think I am going to go Dave Canales, is it? Canal?
Yeah.
For the Panthers. It's either that or Mike Vrabel. But, Dave, you can tell he has improved them, even though their record didn't really show a massive improvement. They still did seem extremely improved, and he seemed to develop Bryce Young very well. And yeah, just off the back of that, and as good as I think that the Panthers will be, I think that's enough to get him a Coach of the Year award.
And now for the biggest award of them all, the most valuable player. I have Joe Burrow, who was tied second in the odds, winning it. I think if the Bengals make the playoffs and he can have at least just a similar season than he did last year, he's gonna run away with it, and he's gonna get his first, obviously. It just feels like, the other top QBs have one or two, so I feel like they're definitely gonna be looking to get Burrow one, and if he puts up the stats, I don't see why not. Obviously, Josh Allen and Lamar is a betting favorite. Allen is tied second with Burrow. They could have a great chance. And you never know with Mahomes, Jaden Daniels even, if he has another leap. But Joe Burrow is my pick.
That's fair. Well, I've got to go with someone. I'm gonna go with someone a little bit different to what you've been suggesting.
Lamar Jackson.
It's the man, the myth, the legend, Bo Nix. I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be silly? No, I am gonna go Lamar Jackson. I do think that as much as I want to go Burrow, it feels like a Burrow year. 8 and 9 ain't gonna cut it. I mean, I squeezed out a Jamar Chase Offensive Player of the Year at 8 and 9. There's no way I can get an MVP season from 8 and 9. I will say though, with Joe Burrow, honestly, I kind of think there's a massive chance that he breaks Peyton Manning's touchdown record. I don't know about passing record, but I reckon he gets like 58 touchdowns. No, I'm kidding, but he could. I feel like he could break a record this year and still not make the playoffs. It's just gonna be that type of season for them, in my
That's
opinion.
fair.
Damn. But yeah, I have Lamar Jackson winning the MVP. I think he's gonna have a great season. I had him in the Super Bowl, and yeah, I think he's gonna ball out this season, in my opinion.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It's our first video in a while for the NFL, that is, and I'm pretty excited for it to be back. Are you excited, Jim?
Absolutely can't wait to watch Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Shadora. If you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. If you want your peak NFL content, peak NFL really content, if you're looking for it, we have it. And without further ado, there's not too much to say for this one. As always, goodbye.